in December, me and my guys signed up for Go Ruck. It's a program run by Special Forces Cadre, and it's like this rucking event. It's pretty good. And we use it in Champion and stuff like that, and we kind of partner on them with some of the gear and some of the things that it is that we do. But anyways, in the event, there's like a 3-hour smoke session in the beginning, and you're rucked up, you got about 40 pounds on your back, plus a bunch of other stuff. So before we leave, we get given instructions. So they bring somebody up to the front, and they're like, hey, we're gonna create this team, you guys are gonna lead, we need leaders. Who's gonna lead, right? So one of my guys, Ed, steps up and he's like, okay, he's gonna be the team leader. Who's the youngest guy? Who's this, who's that? So Ed's one of the youngest guys in the thing, so he steps up to lead. So as he's getting the operations to lead, he gets the opportunity to choose some leaders. He picks some of us on the team to be able to help him lead. So while we're there, they hand him what is called the burden of leadership, which is a 50-pound weighted vest over the top of his ruck. And he slides this on him, and they said, this is the burden of leadership. So while you're wearing this, while you're leading, leadership comes at a cost. Leadership comes at a burden. There's more weight on your shoulders than your guys, yet you still have to get them to perform. And the whole part about this, and this is something that I took away, was that you can't complain about your burden. It's your burden to bear if you're going to be a leader. All leaders have this in place. So while we're carrying all this stuff, now mind you, we're carrying about 500-600 pounds worth of stuff individually as a team, trying to get certain parts of this ruck area where we're going, because we're going 24 miles, I think, at night, in the middle of the night, after 3 hours of getting smoked and getting beat down and covered in mud and water and soot and grit and carrying each other and doing all these things. Ed's talking, and I'm like, man, I got you. I know what it feels like to carry that load. Let's do it. So I grab a 60-pound sandbag, throw it on my back with my ruck, and then I grab a water gallon, and then Brian grabs something, and Taylor grabs something, and Aaron grabs something, and the other people on the team begin to grab, and we can watch Ed, and Ed's apologizing for his leadership, for pushing people, yet he's carrying it. And then I take something off of Ed, and I'm like, Ed, don't apologize for leading this way. He's listening to people complain, and he's beginning to shift the way that he leads, shift the orders, shift the responses from people, shift the requirements of the people on the team to be able to get the job done, because he feels bad for them, because he's forgotten about the burden of leadership on himself, because now it's not about him, it's about the people that he's in charge of. Now while the team is doing the work and complaining, they're bitching at their leader. So we're all leading on this team, we're all helping him, and then we have the people that we're leading. And the purpose about this was, there's a part where Ed finally gets fired. We hit our parts, he did well, and the cadre go, hey, you're fired, give the burden of leadership to someone else. And he slides it onto the shoulders of someone who complained, one of the guys who complained the most. And when the weight hits him, he buckles, and he looks at Ed, he goes, man, I didn't know. I didn't know what this felt like. And he's like, pick your new leaders. And he shook Ed's hand, and Ed walked off to the back. And the guy looked, and he started choosing his leaders, and you could see it on his face that he was tired already before we even had left the spot. Yet he had done the most complaining about how the leadership prior to him had done. When it became my turn, I led, and when my guys got their turn, they led, and we all recognized that the simplicity of that exercise was about real life. At some point, whoever's leading, I don't care if you're leading in your business, or if you're leading as a dad, or if you're leading as a husband, or you're leading as just a man, and also the connective tissue in your relationship with your wife. There's a burden about that leadership that other people don't see. Now, it's not your job to let them know how much extra weight you're carrying. Why can't they work just as hard as you? It is the responsibility and the burden of being in a leadership position to carry the weight, to keep the energy up of your team to get to where you want to go. Because let's face it, when you accept the mantle of leading, sometimes, man, you're going to lead alone, and it's going to be tiring, and it's going to be hard, and you're going to blood, sweat, and tear it out, and it's going to come at an extreme cost, and maybe no one will understand why you want that burden when you shift that responsibility to them. But when you see the benefit of leading and loving and caring and embracing the thing that matters to you the most by seeing it through to the end with the people that you care about the most. And while you may hear them complain and while you may want to say something, man, you hold back and you go, you know what? It's not their burden to bear, it's mine. I love them. I just want to get to where we want to go. It's to all of our benefit to lead this way, to love this way, to be this way. But you got to be willing to play the part, to accept that burden of leadership, that weight, that additional weight that other people may never be able to see because they're doing their work at their level. Is your responsibility to carry it if you want to get people where they want to go. That's why accepting the mantle of being a champion comes at that cost, because you have to be willing to put in the fucking work. You have to be willing to practice. You have to be willing to take your shot in the dark when nobody else wants to take it, because you know that you were created for it. It isn't until you put on your own mantle, your own burden of leadership, and your knees buckle under the weight, and you pop it forward and you say, you know what, guys? We'll be okay. If everyone does their part, we'll be okay. I will do my part, and because of it, we'll be okay. You do your part, and I won't leave you behind, but we got to work together. That's a muscle, man, that you got to exercise. That means that before you put that weight on, you need to be doing the work. Practicing, you need to be training yourself, you need to be mentally focused, you need to be emotionally resilient, you need to do everything it takes, because when your time comes to put on the burden of leadership, you need to be ready. That's what champion is about. So when you hear me say champion's only beyond this point, you have to be willing to pay that cost before we strap on the burden of leadership to you. Oh, your time is coming. You're either going to be led by someone wearing it or you're going to wear it yourself, but either way, leadership happens. And if you're a champion like us, you know that you're called to do this thing. You know that it's your mission. You can't stand being in a position to where you feel like you're called to be more and you're not able to do it. So therefore, you have to be about the business of leading. So therefore, if you're in the business of leading, you have to be about the business of practicing and doing what's required of you, so when it's time for you to step forward and lead, you can. Everyone's wearing the burden of leadership, you just don't know it. Sometimes the best leaders are followers. They can wear that burden of leadership and follow from the back, and they won't say anything. They'll just keep stacking on more weight on their shoulders so they get the job done. And the person in the front has his own on too, and he's stacking on more weight, so it becomes a collective effort of leaders. That's what we're building here. Champions only beyond this point, because we're all willing to pay that cost to be the best. We're all willing to strap on that burden and walk the walk and talk the talk, because we're willing to put in the fucking work before we're called, because we know that that day's coming. The leader in front of us will be fired, will lead to his duties, and we will have to strap on and buckle up, and our knees are going to buckle under the weight, and we're going to lean into that weight, and we're going to walk forward like nobody's ever seen before, because we're called to do that. It is our job. It's our responsibility. The world is waiting on us to show up. It is required of us to wage war, to fight for the things that we want and win it all. Join me in that battle. But I'm telling you, champions only beyond this point, because beyond this point is blood, sweat, and tears. There's a cost associated with being the leader in this space. And I want to welcome you to it. If you want it, if you get it, but when you get it, you've chosen it. No one's going to choose you.